Welcome to The Firing Line with Philip Naiman. The Firing Line radio show is brought to you by Turner's Outdoorsman, IndustryGreetings.com, CCW Safe, Cutting Edge Bullets, Vortex Optics, Vortex, the Force of Optics, and by Philip Naiman and Cornerstone Christian Wealth Management.
Good. Bad. I'm the guy with the gun.
And now your host, Philip Naiman.
Hello, folks. Welcome to another edition of Firing Line Radio Show. I hope you're having a great day wherever you are. Our podcasts are available at firinglineradio.com, firinglineradio.com. You can also get some nice hats and shirts and whatever else you want there. And I think we have about 10 years worth of programming on that site. So there's lots and lots of information that we've been putting out for a long, long time. One of the things I have been amiss in doing, and it's kind of because I've been waiting for the right situation, but there's been so many things that have gone on in our world in this last year, 2, 3 years, in case you were underneath a rock. But I wanted to take a couple of special guests to talk about these items because they're very, very serious. They're in our face, they're in our news cycle, and they're something that we're dealing with all the time. So joining me, I have a former state senator of California, Mike Morell. He was our state legislator, then state senator. He termed out. He is currently in Arizona. We also have Ed Hoffman. Ed Hoffman is, as you know, he's one of our mortgage brokers. He's a supporter of the show, and he is back and forth between Arizona, California, and Montana. So we're going to talk about, and Ed also has his own radio program for about 12 years now called The Main Event.
15.
15?
15 years.
15 is about 12, Ed. Come on, cut me some slack.
It's about all right. You're good.
15 years, The Main Event, right? And that's on AM 590. And your topics there are
All over the place.
There you go.
Everything that is happening in this world and in this country and what it means to us.
All right. So here we are, folks. The reason I wanted to do this is I believe America is under attack. I just don't think that anybody has officially announced it yet. But we take a look at all the different areas in our life that somebody's got a ringing going on there if you want to address that. But take a look at all the different areas in our life that we've seen dramatic changes, whether it's in our freedoms, which is the number one thing, our freedoms, our abilities to do what we need to do, access to goods. This is 10 years ago, we could buy whatever we wanted. Now, still today, there are shortages on the supermarket shelves. It's not making any sense. Or if you're in manufacturing, you're still having a hard time getting some stuff in. I think that ringing's on your mic there, Ed. There's still some issues with that coming through. Now, we always talk about training. We talk about being prepared, but this is a mindset. We want to talk about your mindset with what's going on here and understanding the times, because I believe we're in an asymmetric warfare. There are things that are happening. They go unsolved. And we're going to talk about all the different things that have happened in the last 2-3 years that are unsolved by our wonderful FBI, the custodians of Hunter Biden's laptop and the raiders of Trump's home, but they can't seem to find what's going on a nationwide basis here. So a couple different things we want to talk about. First off, let's just jump over here to the electrical grid. So we have had numerous attacks on the electrical grid. Either of you guys like to comment on that?
Can you get my electric bill reduced? It's gone up just in the last 3 months, Joni goes online on the local blog in our neighborhood. Everybody's electricity over the last 3 months, I know, has increased about 300%. But I think that's a strategic plan to move us off the grid and into, away from natural gas and to their solar and electric.
We've had no new nuclear plants, right? in California, they're looking at decommissioning the last nuclear plant. That was only because of the issues they've had with all the other problems they've created in our grid system is the reason that Diablo is still working. There are no new power plants, period. There aren't any coal power plants, gas power plants. The only thing they're building, and we see it as we drive on the 10 freeway heading towards Arizona, are these solar farm fields. And they are huge. They're all over the place. They take up so many hundreds of thousands of acres. Maybe not hundreds of thousands, but hundreds of acres all over the desert area. And they are at best sketchy as far as the amount of energy that they can produce for us. And there's not a way to store that energy. So we've also had the physical attacks on our you still got that humming going there, Ed. We still have that physical attacks that are on our electrical grid also. There were 97 in 2021. And then there were over 140 in 2022. And everything from people doing drive-bys and shooting up electrical substations. I mean, Ed, give us your talk on that. What's going on with that?
Well, I think we are in danger and no one's paying attention to it. I think the FBI is more involved in covering up things to make Biden look intelligent, which is impossible. Covering up the Hunter Biden story.
That's a full-time job there.
And of course, we just learned this week that the FBI always knew it was a lab leak. They always knew it was a lab leak in the for COVID, and the truth is starting to come out. And happily, we took the House and the investigation. The House of Representatives having all these committees that they're asking the questions that we've all been asking. We all knew about over the last several years, and we've all gone. They're saying, hey, people are saying, hey, COVID was a lab leak in Wuhan, and I'm saying, why has anybody considered this news? Because we all knew it. We all knew it was happening when it was happening, and you see Rand Paul arguing with Tony Fauci, but hey, science, yeah. Mask.
And the issue that I have with our congressional hearings, fine, we find out, but then when the Attorney General will not act on indictments, when we have pure cases of evil going on in there, they have perverted the justice system. And that's the problem. I mean, Fauci should be in jail for what he's done. Only 1 million Americans dead. We as in America had a hand in creating the virus through the NIH and all the grants that they did over there in the Wuhan area. It's terrible. But back on,
it's funny how in China you couldn't get in and out of the city of Wuhan, but if you wanted to get on an international flight, have at it. Get on a plane, fly to any of the other countries.
Yep, exactly right. So Duke Substation last year had an attack. 45,000 people were out of power. On Christmas Day in Tacoma, Washington, 15,000 people had it out of power. The powers that be, the FERC, the Electrical Commission, FERC Chief Willie Phillips, says, so what are we supposed to do? Have armed guards? We should just expect more attacks, right? They're trying to blame this on neo-Nazis. Now, I don't know if you've ever met anybody who considers himself a neo-Nazi, but let's just say they're probably less than competent, right? And if we look at who is out there, a very small group of inbred people that we do not support. But you look at the people
whose family trees don't branch.
It does resemble a taproot, yes. When you look at the people who are against the power plants and all that, they're all the green weenie enviro Nazis. I mean, those are the true Nazis, are the environmentalists, and they're the ones who are causing this. And yet we have our leaders saying that we don't know what's happening and we don't know who this could possibly be. But our electrical grid is under attack. And then food producers. Mike, we've had your involvement with the state Senate. You've seen some of the things that have gone on with Forest Service, Park Service, BLM, where they're restricting grazing rights and items like that. So it appears that animal husbandry, or raising beef, chickens, pork, that is under attack also. You want to comment on that?
Yeah, I think not only that, but one of the reasons it's under the attack um, um, is they say in California the food basket is we're short on water, right? And so they've held back water from the farmers in the Central Valley. You can drive up 5 and you see those signs where the farmers are asking for more water. But what's interesting, I think it was the Department of Water and Power just this week said we're still in a drought. And it's interesting because Congressman Doug LaMoffa, whose area is Northern California, and particularly the Shasta Dam, a few weeks ago saw him letting water out of the Shasta Dam when we need water. And so he found out the reason why is there was silt in the water, and they wanted to clean the water up so the fish didn't have as much silt.
Exactly.
And so I just think.
Hang on one second. We're going to have to touch on that. There's a lot of things going on with our water. Touch on that when we come back right after this.
Okay.
Who's got that whistling going on? Is that Ed?
Is that
your mic?
this?
Yeah.
Hold on, let's see. Does that make it better or worse?
Way worse.
Ed, go into your microphone. Wait a minute. Let me look.
Microphone,
Remember last week we set up so that in your settings
audio settings,
and click that
low faint background noises.
Put it on auto. That'll mute some of that background noise.
Okay, that better?
That's much better.
All righty then.
We put it on low last week so you could play a movie. It wasn't coming through some audio that wasn't coming.
Yeah, because I was in Montana.
Yeah.
All right.
It just once you set it, it stays. That's the thing.
All right. Yay.
So Ed, you bought a home in Montana. You're living there too?
Yeah, I have a house in Bozeman, on the outskirts of Bozeman, Montana, almost in Belgrade, and so it's not quite in the big city of Bozeman. It's kind of on the out. So it's in a track, but I've got a 2-acre lot. And,
how much snow do you have right now?
On probably a foot across our yard.
Well, that's not as much as Big Bear then. It's nicer in Montana than it is in Big Bear.
Well, Big Bear, what's the elevation in Big Bear? 6,000.
Almost
Okay,
7,000, yeah.
so at my house, it's 4,500 in Bozeman. Of course, we're 5 minutes from Bridger Bowl and 30 minutes from Big Sky.
And 18 hours from here.
16.
Good. You're driving
4 hours by plane. Well, 3 hours if you get a direct flight.
Tell me
Right.
how long did it take you last time to fly back?
Yeah, 15
More
hours.
than 4 hours.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah, 15 hours. I could have driven home almost as fast.
Yeah, that's weather. All right, guys, let's pick this up here.
Oh, yeah. Shall we go?
Yep.
This portion of the firing line is brought to you by Turner's Outdoorsman.
All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up. See this? This is my boomstick.
Hey, folks, welcome back to Boomstick Radio. Philip Naiman here. We're talking about the asymmetric warfare that we are all under in America under attack. Different areas, different groups. But when you add it all up together, hey, someone's got to ring the bell and say, come on, folks, we need to fix this. As we went off on our last section here, Mike Morrell, former state senator of California, currently in Arizona, was talking about some of the water issues that we've had. And the different water issues that we've had are man-made. The droughts that we've had, get this, like it or not, are man-made mostly because of environmental agreements that Gray Davis, 4 governors ago, made with the environmental group. Devin Nunes, who you all know now as part of Truth Social, great congressman, he actually was approached by these people and he blew the whistle on them way back in 2000s, but no one's listened. So Mike, you were just talking about Shasta Dam, a giant dam in Northern California. It holds back the American River. Tell us about that.
Well, yeah, so they were letting water out from my understanding of Shasta when we need to be filling up Lake Shasta, right? But the reason why the government said is the water had silt in it, and so they needed to clean the water up a little bit for the fish. And a few years ago, if you remember, and this all has to do with leading to why we're not giving water to the farmers, because we were talking about food production. So there's a whole lot of things that I think are strategic and intentional on these things. So so on the water, it's just the environmentalists are holding this up. I remember a few years ago, I think it was 2018, we had another really great year for rainfall. And what was interesting, all of our dams filled up, and we did not have any more water storage. We have not built any dams for the last 40 years. We've got a few ready to go. We have one up near north of Sacramento called the Sites Dam. It's ready to go, but because of a bug or a rat or whatever, we're not able to produce that where we can have more water storage. And so,
should have some of the farmers go up there and just kill all the rats when nobody's looking, and then say, "Hey, don't worry about it. Fill up the water. The rats are dead."
They'll probably
already.
be in federal prison for 50 years.
Well, and that year I remember, and again, I believe it was 2018. We filled the dams, but we started releasing enough water so the dams wouldn't overflow. And California did enough water to provide for 17 million households for 1 year. And we let that out into the San Francisco Bay. And so I think a lot of our foundations that we're talking about here today, they are under the attack. And I hate to be called a conspiracy theorist, but the thing is there's just too many things going on that you have to wonder what's going on.
If it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, it's pretty.
Yeah, and look at the people of Davos.
Yeah,
and if it tastes good with Laurent sauce.
Yeah, Hillary Clinton, the people of Davos, they want to do this great reset, and that is bad for America, because what they want to do is control almost every aspect of American lives. They want to reduce the energy. They're worried about climate. And the thing is, they want to control our money. They want to reset our money too, and go from the cash that we have into a one world sort of economic system, which is very dangerous, right? They want equity, and equity just means they want to take money away from us. So all these foundations, as you're talking about, Philip, they're all under attack. And so far as a conspiracy theory, what I thought about that, if you remember, I believe it was Julius Caesar. As he has a knife stuck in his back by his best friend, Brutus, he says, "Ute, Brute," as he turns around, meaning, not you too. They said there was a conspiracy theory, but I never thought you would be the one to stab me in the back. And the same thing, when you think about Christ, there was a conspiracy against him. So these are been around for millennials, right? And so today, if you just keep your ears to the ground and we watch what's happening, all of these foundations seem to be under the attack to weaken America, to bring us into where, we will have a need for sort of a one world government. Yep. And that's bad for the citizens of America when we want to produce things. And so again, all this again is, you talk to farmers and they feel like they have been under attack for a couple of decades, by the way. And again, that produces less food. It's one of the reasons we're having a shortage. And then how many poultry plants and food producing plants have been attacked this year? Did you say 12?
No, it's more than that. It was over 100.
Yeah,
in the last 12 months, not just since January 1st.
I can't believe those are just by luck.
They're just fires, just automatic fires. Yeah. Look at the, like, again, I'm calling this asymmetric warfare. What would it cost you if you were a country like, I don't know, China or Russia? What would it cost you to have a small group on the ground who ran around starting fires? Well, gas is more expensive than it was under Trump, so there's that expense. But, arson fires happening, 100,000 birds go here. Two plants were affected last year. 11%. They handle 11% of all the beef in the United States. 2 plants, 11%. Those are big numbers when you start.
Well, our numbers on beef, wherever we shop, and eggs, everything is growing exponentially. And I want to say something about that. Sorry to interject this, but there was a great article in Wall Street Journal a couple of months ago by Robert Shiller, the Case-Shiller Index. Mm-hmm. And, we talk about our inflation being at 8 or 9%, but back about 20 years ago, they used to factor in housing, oil, which is gasoline, food, and our utilities. They removed that from the inflation index. And he said the true index right now is more like 16 to 17%.
Right.
which is causing all the prices to increase.
Now that's the Case-Shiller, those indexes. I mean, I'm in financial services, right? I've seen them manipulate that since the mid 90s. When something starts going up too high, they pull it out of the index. They from 2000 to 2005, housing was not involved in it. Well, that was like the biggest rising expense. Anyway, so those numbers are manipulated. We do know that. The other part is you've got a whole group of people who want you to eat bugs or plants, neither of which are sane. In First Timothy, it says, watch out for those who tell you to abstain from meats and the doctrines of demons. And that's pretty much who we're dealing with on this. We talked about the water. We talked about the fact that it is environmental groups that are involved in this. In Los Angeles, the LA River, 90+% of it is used for human consumption. If you go to the Pacific Museum down in Long Beach, they've got a giant illustration for the school kids showing how they want to bring cutthroat trout, steelhead back in the LA River, have a free flowing river. Well, where's the 90% of the use for human consumption going? Right? It's gone.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's
exactly. And what I can't understand is why a state like California is experiencing a drought when we have that big blue thing to the left of us. What's it called? Pacific Ocean? No.
Well, let me share a little something that I learned about that, Ed, when I was in the state Senate. And I believe I'm going by memory from 10 years ago. But at one time we had like seven companies that were working on desalination plants. And some of them stayed 8, 9, 10 years to try to get permits to have these plants, right? And they eventually all left California because they could not, time value of money, it was getting too expensive. So there was only one, I believe it was called the Poseidon Company, that did get one done in San Diego, which only produces, my understanding, about 1% of the water for San Diego County. But again, the environmentalists and our government, bureaucratic governments who are unelected people made these decisions, and that's why we do not have salinization plants in California.
Yeah, well, I noticed when we were on a cruise and we stopped in on the island of Aruba, the whole island is clean water from desalination. They don't have any clean water on there except for desalination.
Palm Island did the same thing in the Caribbean. They all have their own desalination plants and they have beautiful water. So how is it destroying everything? The environmentalists are always worried about the rising oceans are going to destroy everything, right? So they flush all the water from the mountains to the ocean, and then we can't drink the ocean water either. They're actually doing everything they can to make the sea levels rise.
They're going to save the earth, but kill all the people.
Yeah, they're wonderful.
Well, a couple other things too, just as a side note, I go to the beach a lot. I love paddleboarding, so I get down there quite a bit. And of course, I've been going to the beach since I was probably 5 years old, living in California all my life. And so far, Huntington Beach, Newport, the sea hasn't risen there yet. So I'm waiting for Al Gore's Florida to be covered by 9 inches of water back by, I think, 2013. And the beach is there. Nothing's risen there. And, you quoted a scripture a few minutes ago, Philip, and there's another one that I think goes along with the environmentalists. It's in Romans. It talks about professing to be wise, they became fools and worshiped the creation rather than the creator. And so God gave them over to a state of depravity to worship four-footed, or four-legged animals and images carved of stone and wood. And I just think, a lot of these environmentalists, they do profess to be wise, but yet when you do discuss and debate with them, their common sense goes out the window. It's all an emotional debate without any facts behind them to guide them.
That's right. We'll be right back after this. You're absolutely right on that. The other part is, you talk about scripture. God says he put a border. The seas will no longer cross this. We don't have to worry about rising ocean.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's funny. People are worried about all sorts of things right now, but scripture does say sort of the end, it's all going to happen in Israel or Jerusalem. Yeah. Israel. Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, are we going down the right path?
I'm loving this. So we're going to talk next. Our next question is to border or not to border. We'll pick that up right after this.
This portion of the firing line is brought to you by CCW Safe, by Philip Naiman and Cornerstone Christian Wealth Management.
Spartans, lay down your weapons! Persians, come and get them!
Hey folks, Moulin Labe Saturday. Philip Naiman here. I hope you're having a great day wherever you are. I hope you're getting energized I hope you're getting fired up and realizing that, hey, what are we going to do to stop this? America is under attack, folks. Your way of life, everything you hold dear is under attack by a small group of horrible people who are horrible people. Our next question we're going to address here is to border or not to border. That is the question. Now, we're broadcasting in Arizona, we're broadcasting California, two states dramatically affected by illegal immigration. It's not even immigration, it's an invasion. It's an illegal invasion. You can't have 8 million people in a year or 2 years cross the southern border and assimilate them. You can't. There's no desire to. It was designed, again, to change the demographics, to change our way of life, to change our capitalist system, because now you've got 8 million people with hands out. There's going to need services. So let me jump over to you here, Ed. I think you probably had a few shows of your own on this. Why don't you give us some ideas what's going on there?
Yeah, the fact that we're letting so many people over the border, we don't have any idea who they are. Remember, 9/11 happened because of 19 guys from Saudi Arabia that came over and came over through the immigration system and took some flight classes to learn how to fly a plane. They didn't want to know how to land, and they didn't really know how to take off. They just needed to know how to steer them. And that created that's what created 9/11 and started the war on terrorism there. And right now we've got the borders open. Hey, poor people from Mexico and El Salvador and Guatemala and then Venezuela and Puerto Rico and Cuba.
To be Brazil, now that they've got another psycho communist running that place.
Exactly. And we got people coming over from Afghanistan. Hey, the people want to get out of Afghanistan. They know it's easier just to fly to South America or Mexico and just walk across the border than go through the immigration system. And you know what? I think the people in Syria and Libya and Iran, I think they all have CNN and they all have Fox and they all have the internet, and they're seeing what's going on. And hey, let's get some more terrorists into the United States. We don't know who's here. And now the Democrats are trying to. I think they passed something yesterday having to do with letting illegal aliens vote, which is complete idiocy in my eyes. And I often ask the question, what is the motive here? I mean, the Democrats can't be this stupid. I know that, hey, whatever Nancy Pelosi says is what we're going to do. Whatever Joe Biden, whatever our team rhetoric is going to be, we're going to all march to the beat, and I'll give them credit that at least they know how to stick together. But what is their motive?
Their motives to get those folks to vote Democrat, because they're passing out all the goodies to them, and it's wrong. The founders talked a lot about immigration. We're a country. Remember, it says out of many one, and so how do we assimilate? So the founders said, the process should be slow, 12 to 13 years, because we want to overwhelm people that come into our land with our culture rather than having them overwhelm us with theirs, because
exactly.
you cannot have people from different countries. Remember, French people come from France, Italians come from Italy, but we've got every race here in the United States, as they call the melting pot. So you have to have some kind of a glue to hold us together. Abraham Lincoln was clear about what that glue was. He said, the electric cord which binds Americans together is the Declaration of Independence. And there's things in there. They believe in self-evident truth, according to the laws of nature. Nature's God. They believe in a God, a creator, meaning a singular God, monotheistic, not polytheistic. And then we're supposed to come here and be willing to pledge everything, our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor for our families and our countrymen and women. And so that, what a lot of responsibility. Plus, at one time, I mean, taking a Constitution test, a friend of mine, his mother or his grandmother came here and had to take the test 5 times to pass Constitution test. I got a copy of it fairly recently, and the questions have been really dumbed down. Like, A, was there originally 10 colonies, B, 12 colonies, or C, 13 colonies? Nothing about articles or sections. So we're destroying our own selves because we have abandoned the political principles contained in our founding documents. And the second thing, you know, since I am a Christian, when I got into the Senate, I had people calling me and asking me why I was opposed to illegal immigration. Well, besides being illegal, you know, the scripture, I actually went back to scripture because people sort of threw in my face where to welcome the stranger. But it was interesting. That's the big print. The small print says, but the stranger, and I think it says it over 17 times, if I remember, they have to follow those Mosaic laws. And so then I looked up the Mosaic laws. And it's like, there is no religious freedom. You had to worship the true and living God. You had to eat a certain diet and do all these things. And I remember thinking after the 17th law, very few people are getting in here. One last story is it also is a curse to a country where it says the tail will eventually become the head and we'll lose our prosperity too.
Yeah, well, in the past, we've been the melting pot. People come to America because they want to be part of our culture, and now it's they bring their culture and want us to respect that. Say, hey, that's not how we do things here.
It's like screwing something up and then wanting to it's like the Democrats who are moving to Phoenix and voting for Katie Hobbs, right? They left California under Gavin Newsom, and then they put the same kind of a horrible governor back into the next state they go. It's repeating, you know, it's defecating where you eat.
And my question is, did that really happen, or is all the mail-in ballots? You know, it's convenient. Hey, we get mail-in ballots.
I believe it was fraud. I believe it was fraud. Absolutely. I saw too many videos. Charlie Kirk had them where the guys are stuffing ballots and then nothing ever happens. And, you know, after the election, it's like, what do? Nobody has the cojones to stand up and say, this is right. We need to redo this. So the judges all melt. They all suck. It's terrible. We don't get justice. We have
observers at the polls while they're counting them.
They're ringing the bell saying, look, this is a crime. And then nothing happens. And when justice is denied, it I want to say the B word, but I can't on Salem radio, but it betards the entire system. And it destroys everything on there when justice is denied and justice is perverted. And that's what we're seeing. The laws aren't followed, the rules aren't followed, and there's no ramifications for that behavior. So what do? You get another stolen election. You get 30,000 more votes in every district that are on paper. LA County finally, through the Judicial Watch system, got 1.2 million dead voters removed. 1.2 million. You know,
was that before the election or after the election?
That was just this month. So it's after all the elections. Now they have to go add them all again, right? But 1.2 million. How many?
Now if the Republicans don't.
How many of our propositions squeaked by with, 100,000 variants, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So
hey, by the way, go ahead, Ed.
We don't have anybody watching the post office. So in my eyes, you've got all these somebody postmarking all these ballots, and they don't show up till a week later because we need to know how many do we need. Because if we need, $10 million ballots, that's going to look funny. So let's just wait and see. I say, hey, mail-in ballots should be for only people who have legitimate reason for mail-in and request an absentee ballot. Don't mail out all these ballots to people that you don't even know if they're even alive anymore, or if they've moved and re-registered. And hey, if you do a mail-in ballot, it has to be done a week early.
Yep.
So election day happens, it's done.
In 2010, was when I ran and I won the assembly, and at 8:30 the first votes came out, but it was only 3% of the votes. And there was a gentleman from the press called me and asked me if I wanted to give a victory statement. And I said, but only 3% of the votes been count. I said, Mike, I've been doing this for 20 years. Whatever it is right now, it's going to be that way in 2 weeks from now. Sure enough, I ended up with 8.5% of the vote. But 2012, I was 9 3/4 points ahead, and my lead started dwindling. It's like, what happened with what he said, just 2 years later? And so we sent, at the time we could do this, we can't now, we sent 18 college kids out to the voter registers, and they were able to stand behind each person counting, but they were not, if they wanted to challenge the ballot, they had to go to the floor manager, and he came over. Well, one college kid saw that they were both in absentee ballots and provisional ballots were being sent in, and they saw that the people were registered to vote, but not in any of the cities that I was representing.
Yep.
And so what happened, we ended up throwing out that first day about 300, challenging and throwing out about 350 votes that day. And then we ended up, if I recall correctly, throwing out about 5,000 votes, and I won that race. So I don't think there was any fraud before 2012, but that year, I think I figured out how they do it, that you can get rolls to find out who votes, who doesn't vote, who's registered. So you get people that have been registered for 10 years and they haven't voted. That's easy to get an absentee ballot, a provisional ballot, and then send it in, and those people will never know, and it's hard to track. And I saw it firsthand. There was fraud. There wasn't.
You saw it firsthand. We've all seen it the last two big election cycles. Folks, we'll be right back after this. Yeah, huge. But it's only fraud. It only matters.
Yeah, and if the Republicans don't start doing something to
They're not
change the voting rules,
change the name.
we're going to get screwed in 24.
They're reunicans, okay? That's the
but we have some rising stars in there that are making noise. And
4.
well,
Correct.
200.
Hey, am I on the right
you only
track?
need one match to start a fire.
We got 221 congressmen on Republican congressmen. We got what, 4? Not just men, women, right? There's a couple of ladies in there that are awesome. Do we have less than a dozen? You can count them on 2 hands and 1 foot. It's like,
Yep.
Where are the other 200? Well, they're all in the sponge chin, square pants, Mitch McConnell crowd, or the Lindsey Nancy Graham. Ugh.
Hey, am I hogging the conversation, Phil?
Absolutely not. You're going to like this next section. We're going to talk about evil in the spotlight. All right. This is good. We should do this. There's so much more to cover. Sorry.
We do it more often if you want.
Hey, Ed, did I hear you, Phil, say you have a home in Arizona too?
Yeah, Bullhead City.
Gosh, John, I wish I was rich and famous.
You are famous.
Not rich though.
Well, you were in the mortgage business just like me.
We're not missing meals, are we?
What?
Yeah.
We're not missing any meals.
All right.
Yeah, so I got the
I guess those 7 years we spent in high school paid off, Ed.
Exactly. I got into it with someone on Facebook about the student loan things, and one of my neighbors goes, my girls, we didn't have any choice. We had to get student loans, and they're both doing good, and they're both, hey, yeah, but they don't, and they have good jobs. You don't need a college degree to get a good job.
Nope.
Well, if
One's
they're
working
doing
for-
well, then they can pay back their student loans.
So I'm on the board of Arizona Christian University. All the Christian universities that are holding to their conservative principles are gaining enrollment.
Yep.
What's interesting is almost all the other colleges in America across the board are losing. Their enrollments are going down. People are realizing you spend 80 grand for student loans and you end up in the mortgage business anyhow.
I know.
But
Exactly.
you didn't need a degree for.
I said, hey, I got a whole bunch of employees that have college degrees, and I don't have one. I'm a college dropout. So
That's funny. All right, mortgage people, let's go.
Here we go. This portion of the firing line is brought to you by Vortex Optics. Vortex, the force of optics.
Yes! Great hunter. Yes? Fine figure of a man, yes? Yes?
Yes.
That is all you need to know for now.
Hey, folks, welcome back to Firing Line Radio Show. This is Philip Naiman here. I'm really enjoying this show here because, well, I've got some great guests and they make my life easier. We've talked about asymmetric warfare, right? America under attack. And come on, man. Email me, PM me if you think I'm full of beans, and this is not true. We're just hitting you with facts one after the other, and there's going to have to come a time where we wake up and say, "Hey, what the heck is going on here?" One thing I want to highlight: this is an oddity. Well, it's not an oddity, but it's bizarre. Okay. Evil in the spotlight. Now, I am near 60 years old, right? I've been around a long time. I knew Moses when he wore short pants, right? That's how old I am. But to see what we see now as accepted as entertainment or is elevated in our media is absolutely horrific. Now, I'm going to talk about a couple different things that happened. Most recently, you guys saw that, what's that chubby little bugger in the red, Sam something or other, singing at the Grammys with a bunch of trannies in cages, and it's
Sam
horrific.
Smith?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, Chubby. So
Yeah,
Chubby's
I'm not
out there
familiar with him
dancing, and you know, you see that, but backing up. So that's like the most recent thing, but you back up. There's been these very strange events that are huge, televised nationwide, that are absolutely bizarre. And if you want to go back to a city in Switzerland called CERN, I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but the opening ceremonies of the CERN Hadron Collider, either of you happen to catch that?
Not
No.
not I.
All right, folks, go on YouTube, look up the CERN opening ceremony for the Hadron Collider. And an interesting thing is this particular area of CERN was actually built on Apollo's temple in Switzerland. It's mentioned in the book of Revelation also, but they did this demonic ceremony. You know, I mean, they got a guy running around with a goat head on. They pretended to cut off somebody's head and covers people in blood. This is an opening ceremony of a Hadron Collider. And then they did another one up there in the same area in the Gothard Tunnel. Again, another demonic ceremony. And this one, they were opening up, they literally on big screens were opening a portal so spirits could come through. Why? This is supposed to be a scientific experiment, this Hadron Collider. Why do we have this weirdness going on? So those two were 5 or 6 years ago. In July of last year, and if you guys go online right now, folks, go to YouTube, type in the Commonwealth 2022 opening ceremony, and you'll see a giant bull being worshipped by people who have crystals in their hand from the Star of Lucifer. This is the opening ceremonies for the Commonwealth Games in last summer. What the heck? You're supposed to run around. It's like the Olympic ceremonies, you know, wave your flag, hey, cheer to your people, you know, do your national anthem, move on. No, there's something very strange going on here when you look at what's going on. These things didn't happen 15, 20 years ago, and they are now. On top of those, because that's not enough, the Luxor Temple in Egypt, they had an opening ceremony for this giant old ceremony in Luxor, temples in Luxor, the Avenue of the Sphinxes, which an interesting thing, you like this, as they cleaned it all up and they excavated this thing with all the sand that had covered it up for millennia, the entire avenue has goat-headed entities. You know, when the Lord led the Israelites out of Egypt, he says, you will no longer serve the goat-headed demons. That entire avenue is lined with them. Again, another demonic ceremony that happened there, and the whole world is watching. And then you add something in it like, Epstein Island or maybe Abramovich here in the United States with the blood rituals. You know, we saw the emails between Clinton, Podesta, Obama. You know, help me out here, guys. Am I going crazy, or are we witnessing an influence of evil like we've never seen before? I guess I'm
Well, go ahead, Ed.
You know what? I absolutely believe there's an influence of evil, and it's I listen to today's music, and I see it, and I hear it in the lyrics. I listen to we went to the Eagles concert on Saturday night, and we decided to come home and stopped at a Black Bear Diner to have breakfast before we went and relieved our dog sitter. And while we're in there, I'm going, do you need to have neck tattoos and rings through your nose and all this crazy stuff to be a part of Southern California society today? It just seems like, where am I? It's people mutilating themselves and hey, this is acceptable today. I don't understand it. And the whole being disrespectful to authority, and where are these kids? Who's raising these kids? And when we're gone, I mean, I'm a little over 60, so I say, hey, when my generation is gone, who's going to lead this world? I mean, what kind of world's going to be left for my grandkids? It's evil out there. I tell my son, hey, take the kids out of public school and put them in Christian schools. You have the money. Don't be so cheap. Invest it in your kids and making sure that they have their heads screwed on straight. And it's amazing to me. I don't understand it.
Right.
Well, a couple of things. Yeah. I do believe, we've talked, Salem's a Christian network, and so, we can relate to that. But Daniel, if you remember, he was in a lot of trouble when he's in the lion's den. So he prays, and finally Gabriel shows up, and he's like, I'm paraphrasing this, where were you, man? I almost died. And he said, well, I tried breaking through the demonic, through the prince of Persia, meaning the demons over the country of Persia. And I didn't have enough manpower, so I had to go back and get Michael, the archangel, and read for reinforcements to break through enemy lines. And, you're esteemed by heaven. We apologize. It took 21 days. So there are obviously things that are happening in the spiritual realm. But on the practical realm, George Washington, in his farewell address, reminds America of all the habits and dispositions which lead to political prosperity, which is prosperity across the line: economic, political, education, morality, and religion are indispensable supports. So this is, and one more thing, you mentioned Moses. He warns people of Israel as they're going to the promised land, you're going to be given national prosperity, but he reminds them over 50 times, only if you follow those moral laws, decrees, and commands. So bringing it back to that, there is a lot of things going on, but I want to blame a certain group of people, okay, who I think control this. And it's really, I think, people of faith, and particularly the pastors. Alexis de Tocqueville, in his classic book, Democracy in America, I think I found, it's over 700 pages, and I think I found the most important paragraph in there. And he said, America's great because she's good, but if she ceases to be good, she'll cease to be great. And then he says this, he said, but if the pulpits are no longer aflame with righteousness, could it be that the people will no longer know the truth? And that's where I think we're at. When you look at history, or you look at the scriptures, our people, our pastors, many of our pastors have gone user-friendly, seeker-sensitive. They've gone into missing in action. They've gone silent on the most important issues of the day. And then we, as believers, we have a duty to speak out. But so many of my friends, we don't talk. We think, and when we're silent, it only emboldens evil. And remember, this politically correct speech has been around for millennials. It's been called different things. But the reason we should be happy with that is because that means the reason the other side does political correct speech is they know they can't win the argument. So what they do is they try to intimidate us and shut us up. But when we're silent, it only emboldens evil. So I think the pastors have to repent. I think people of faith, we have to take back over our schools. I'm happy that these young parents are going into schools, taking back the school boards, and the only thing they want their kids to do is learn. They're tired of the sex curriculum. They're tired of the trans thing going on. They want their kids to learn math and reading and those sorts of things. And so I think the thing is evil it is destroying our country. It is so right on some of those things. But again, I think people of faith have to stand up in the spirit of the founding and be ready to pledge our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor, everything to save our country. But we can start by speaking out. It's like you're doing on your radio program, Philip, but so many people are afraid. They fear man more than they fear God. And the fear of man casts a snare, by the way. And because a lot of my friends who, after COVID, said we were going to go over our in-laws' house or, you know, our whoever's house, our friends, and have dinner, get together, but we can't talk about religion and politics. But yet those are the only two ways that men either oppress other men and send them into 1,000 years of bondage or set them free. So we have to get busy about, as scripture says, tearing down every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. We've got the truth. We have to stand firm. And we've got to do like we're doing here today. We've got to talk to as many people as we can. That's how Lincoln won the argument against slavery. That's how Churchill won the argument against Hitler, is he was willing to speak for 7 years to groups as small as 5 people. So I'm speaking my piece. Sorry.
No, thank you. Thank you, Mike. We got to end the show there. Very well said. Thank you, guests. I hope, folks, you enjoy this. We'll see y'all next week.